The universe has a strange way of keeping score, not always loud, not always immediate, but always precise. There's a law older than time itself. What you send out eventually returns. You see, some people don't throw punches, they throw thrones. They try to rule over you with manipulation, silence you with shame, and trip you with envy disguised as concern. But here's the twist they never expected. Every trap they built for you became a mirror that reflects their own downfall. Life doesn't ignore intention. It calculates it. The lies they whispered in the dark, the games they played behind your back, the sabotage dressed as support, all of it stacks up like unpaid debt. And the universe? It collects in full, not as revenge, not as karma, but as cosmic alignment, a correction of imbalance. That's why their victories feel so hollow now, why their confidence looks like panic in disguise. Critics thought you'd stay down. They needed you to. Because the moment you rose, you became their worst nightmare, a chosen one who can't be controlled. You carry a frequency they can't fake, a presence they can't replicate, and a destiny that terrifies them. Your growth echoes through every room they enter. It haunts them, because deep down they know the one they tried to erase is now the version they can't escape. So let them watch, let them stew in the weight of their own games. Because what was meant to break you became the very force that made you untouchable. And if you feel this, if every word felt like it came from your story, don't just scroll. Like this video. Subscribe. We're not just exposing truth. We're creating a movement. And trust me, this is just the beginning. If you're feeling this in your bones, it's because you're not just anybody, you're one of the chosen ones. What happened to you wasn't random. This kind of betrayal only hunts those who carry power. Most people won't get it, but you do. Stay with me till the end. This message was made for you. Number 1, never ignore the signs if they knew what they were doing. It wasn't love, it was control. There's something chilling about a person who studies your kindness like a blueprint only to weaponize it. Understand this. What happened to you wasn't random, and it sure as hell wasn't a moment of weakness on their part. It was a strategy. A calculated move made by someone who saw your light and felt threatened by it. The most dangerous people don't come in loud, they come in soft, with half-truths and fake concern, quietly measuring how deep they can bury the blade without you noticing it at first. They don't hurt you and feel regret they hurt you and track your reaction. That's the real game. They watch if you flinch, if you confront, or if you retreat. Every apology is a smokescreen. Every gentle word is laced with poison. And just when you start to question whether you're overthinking, that's when they know they've got you. These people don't crave connection, they crave control. Your pain isn't a side effect, it's their leverage. Every boundary they crossed wasn't an accident, it was a test. They needed to know, how much can you take before you break? And if you called them out, they were ready for that too. They had their script. You're too sensitive, you're paranoid, you're imagining things, all designed to make you doubt your own mind. And that's the cruelest part. It's not just what they did, it's how they made you question your right to feel hurt at all. But here's the part they never accounted for. You're not like the rest. You weren't built to crumble. While they played games in the dark, you were learning how to see without light. While they thought you were breaking, you were collecting data, sharpening your senses, preparing for a day they never saw coming, the day you'd detach, rise, and make their entire power trip collapse from the inside. They never expected consequences. That's what makes them so dangerous and so vulnerable. People like this believe they can outsmart reality. That time, truth and consequences don't apply to them. But the universe doesn't work on ego. It works on energy. And the energy they threw at you? It's making its way back louder, heavier, and wrapped in lessons they can't outrun. They thought they'd always have the upper hand, but now the tables aren't just turning, they're flipping. Because chosen ones don't stay victims, they become architects of their own freedom. And while they played checkers, you built a new kingdom with nothing but your silence and survival. This wasn't clumsiness. This wasn't heat of the moment. This was cold, precise, intentional sabotage. But here's the irony: you were the wrong one to mess with. And now, life is teaching them a lesson in the one language they speak: loss. Number 2, don't let pain be the price. If they use your suffering as currency, cut off their power supply. They didn't just want to hurt you. They needed your pain. Understand that. This wasn't about a heated argument, a misunderstanding, or a moment of emotional immaturity. The pain was the point. It was the tool, the strategy, the currency they used to control you. People like this don't strike randomly. They calculate. They pick at your insecurities just enough to make you shrink, but not enough for you to completely walk away. That's how they keep you tethered, by turning your suffering into their safety net. They thrive when you're unsure of yourself. They create chaos and confusion, then pretend to be the calm. They tell half-truths, plant seeds of doubt, and watch you twist yourself into silence just to keep the peace. They know that if they can get you to question your worth, they don't have to do much else. You'll start dimming your own light. And that's the sick genius of it. Pain, for them, is power. Every time you cried and they ignored it. Every time you voiced a concern and they flipped it on you, that was them tightening the grip. Like a spider weaving a web, slow and silent. You didn't even realize you were being wrapped in control until you were already stuck. But here's what they never expected. You're chosen. And chosen ones, we don't stay victims, we transform. The very pain they used to break you became the fire that awakened you. The manipulation that once clouded your judgment became the lens that sharpened your vision. You stopped reacting and started observing. You stopped breaking and started building. And now, they can't reach you. They thought they were taking your strength, but all they did was reveal it. They were feeding off your confusion, but now you're clear. They tried to keep you small, now your presence alone rattles them. And here's the final twist. The pain they used to rise is now the very thing dragging them down. Because when you weaponize someone's soul, the recoil always hits harder. They thought you'd stay wounded. Instead, you became untouchable. Number 3. Stop waiting for karma. What you're seeing are consequences, not coincidences. Let's get one thing straight. What's happening to them right now isn't some mystical force swinging a hammer of justice. This isn't karma floating in the sky keeping a secret scoreboard. This is cause and effect. Raw, ruthless, and inescapable. What they're dealing with now, it's not punishment. It's the aftermath of a system they created with their own hands, a flawed, toxic system built on lies, betrayal, and manipulation. See, people like this think they're above consequences. They move through life burning bridges like it's nothing, stepping over people who once helped them, betraying those who trusted them, thinking they'll always be 5 steps ahead. But here's the problem with that mindset. Deception is a debt. And that debt doesn't just disappear, it compounds, quietly, until the interest is so high, they can't breathe under the weight of it. In the beginning, it looks like they're winning. They lie, cheat, manipulate, and nothing happens. They think they're untouchable. Meanwhile, you, the chosen one they tried to break, you're rising, healing, and watching it all unfold. Because time is the one variable they never account for. It doesn't always respond immediately. But when it moves, it corrects everything. They thought no one would catch on, that the damage they caused would stay buried. But people talk, people remember, and eventually the mask slips for good. The allies they used to manipulate are gone. The people they controlled, silent. The reputation they once clung to like a throne, it's ashes now, because the truth always finds its way to the surface, and when it does, it spreads like wildfire. You can't poison people and expect to live clean. You can't build an empire on destruction and expect it to last. Eventually, what they put out comes circling back, not as some mystical karma, but as a chain reaction triggered by their own arrogance. And here's the part they hate most: you didn't have to lift a finger. You didn't chase revenge. You chose growth. You chose silence. And in that silence, they crumbled. Not because the universe punished them, but because they were never built to last. Number 4. If they keep testing your limits, it's not love. It's a blueprint to break you. Some people hurt you, not because they lost control, but because they wanted it. Cold, calculated, tactical. You were never just a person to them, you were a project, a challenge. They needed to know, can this one be broken? Can this one be tamed? They weren't looking for love, they were looking for control. And your pain, that was their measuring stick. Every silent treatment, every backhanded compliment, every betrayal disguised as a misunderstanding. That wasn't chaos, that was a carefully crafted experiment. They studied you like a lab rat, poked, prodded, and then sat back to watch. Would you collapse? Would you blame yourself? Would you shrink to fit into the smaller version of you that they could dominate? That's what they wanted. Someone obedient. Someone easier to manipulate. A version of you who didn't question, didn't resist, didn't shine too brightly. But here's what they couldn't predict. You're not average. You're chosen. They pushed you to your limits, hoping to break you, but all they did was reveal the depth of your power. They thought you'd snap. Instead, you sharpened. They thought you'd crumble. Instead, you became unshakable. While they were busy trying to weaken you, they were unintentionally training a warrior. And when they realized their manipulation wasn't working, that's when the cruelty intensified. Because nothing threatens a controller more than someone who sees through the strings and refuses to dance. They tried to provoke you into destruction, hoping you'd do their job for them. But you didn't bite. You endured. You evolved. That's what haunts them now. You weren't broken, you were tested. And not only did you pass, you came out more powerful than they ever imagined. That's strength. That's not just survival, that's divine defiance. Now they're the ones shaking. Because once you've survived someone's worst, there's nothing left they can use against you. Their games, useless. Their control, gone. Their power, shattered. You didn't just survive the test, you rewrote it, and that's exactly what makes you dangerous. Number 5, your recovery is their defeat. Heal loudly, because they never planned for your comeback. They didn't just want to hurt you, they wanted to end you silently, slowly, and completely. The goal was never just pain, it was paralysis. They thought if they hit you hard enough, you'd never get back up, that your silence would become permanent, that your exhaustion would drain your will to fight. They weren't aiming for a temporary breakdown, they were betting on total erasure. Because people like this don't need you to be dead, they just need you to be powerless, to walk through life second-guessing yourself, doubting your voice, carrying the weight of their destruction like it's your own reflection. Their real weapon wasn't what they did. It was what they hoped you'd believe about yourself after it was over. that you were weak, broken, done. But here's where the story flipped. You didn't stay lost. You didn't stay broken. And that's what haunts them now. You see, they were never afraid of the version of you they tried to control. They were terrified of the version you'd become if you ever woke up. The version that remembered who they were. The version that reclaimed everything they tried to destroy. You were never meant to stay in that pit. You were just gathering strength. And while they were celebrating your collapse, you were quietly rising. Your healing wasn't loud, but it was lethal. Because now they see it. In your walk, in your silence, in the way you no longer flinch, explain, or chase. You stopped being their victim, and in that moment, they lost every ounce of power they thought they had over you. That's their nightmare. You thriving, you glowing, you living like they never existed. Because now they have to sit with the truth. They spent all that time trying to break someone who was never breakable to begin with. You're not the same person they hurt. You're the upgraded version refined by fire, shaped by pain, and completely out of their reach. Chosen ones don't stay down. We rise silently. And when we do, the ones who tried to bury us have no choice but to watch us bloom in the soil they thought would be our grave. Number 6. Don't give them the meltdown. They're hoping for stay calm while they fall apart. They didn't just want to hurt you, they wanted to erase you. Not physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Their goal wasn't just pain, it was collapse. They wanted you to self-destruct, to become your own downfall, so they'd never have to take the blame. Every insult, every betrayal, every moment of silence, they weren't random. They were loaded traps, psychological landmines. They studied your weakness and then disguised sabotage as love, as concern, as tough lessons. You were never just being hurt, you were being set up. They hoped you'd crack, lash out, scream, and spiral. They wanted to provoke a reaction so they could say, "See? That's why I treated them like that. That's why I left." They needed you to fall apart so they could play the victim and clean their image. Because the truth is, some people can't survive being exposed. So they create chaos in your life, hoping you'll be the one who looks unhinged while they sit back and act composed. They expected you to drown in your own pain, but you didn't. You didn't take the bait. You didn't let their cruelty define your story. And that is what they never saw coming. Instead of becoming bitter, you became better. Instead of breaking, you began to rebuild. You became something far more dangerous than angry. You became free. They poisoned the water hoping you'd drink it, but you chose not to. And now they're the ones choking on everything they poured out. Their lies, falling flat. Their masks, slipping fast. Their games, no longer working. They're unraveling while you ascend. You're not stuck in the past, they are. Because they built their world on the assumption that you'd never heal, that you'd never rise, that you'd stay damaged, confused, and silent. But chosen ones don't break that easily. And when we do fall, we rise sharper. You see, they spent all their energy preparing for your downfall, but never planned for your comeback. And now they're watching the one they tried to destroy become the version of you they can't touch, can't manipulate, and can't explain. They bet on your destruction, but the only thing falling apart now is them. Number 7. Arrogance makes them weak. Let them destroy themselves. While you move in silence. Arrogance has a way of blinding people. It convinces them they're untouchable, unstoppable, above the rules that govern the rest of us. And the ones who tried to break you? They weren't just playing games, they truly believed they'd already won. In their mind, you were a pawn, disposable, predictable, weak. They thought they had you trapped in a maze of silence, doubt, and dependency. But what they didn't see is that you were the exception to every rule they built. They moved with overconfidence, mistaking manipulation for mastery. Every lie they told, every subtle jab, every power move, it all came from the belief that you'd never fight back. They thought they were the smartest in the room, always one move ahead. But here's what arrogance does to people like that. It makes them sloppy. It makes them underestimate those who are watching quietly, calculating, growing. You see, while they were busy tightening the leash, you were planning your escape. Every insult, every betrayal, every moment they thought they broke you was actually building you. They didn't know the strength of a chosen one because they've never been one. They've never felt what it's like to be underestimated, to be counted out, and then rise so high that the very people who tried to destroy you have to look up just to see where you are now. They assumed you'd never leave, never grow, never win. And that assumption, it became the very blade that cut them down. Because when their lies stopped working, when their control slipped, when your silence turned into power, they had no idea how to handle it. Their whole empire of manipulation started to crumble, fast. That's the thing about arrogance. It tricks people into thinking consequences are optional. That truth can be buried forever. That people like you will never find your way out. But you did. And now they're choking on the same web they once used to trap you. They built a world of lies, and now they're suffocating inside it. No escape, no control, just them. And the reality they never thought they'd have to live with. Because when you try to play God in someone else's life, you better pray they never wake up. You did. And now, they can't undo it. Number 8, the mask always slips. Trust what you see, even when they say you're overreacting. They always thought they had the perfect disguise, charming, collected, calculated. They walked into every room acting like they owned it, fooling everyone with their fake smiles and polished words. They weren't just hiding who they were curating a performance. But here's the truth. Their mask was cracked long before it shattered. And you saw it. Even when you didn't know exactly what you were looking at, your spirit recognized something was off. It showed up in flashes, those subtle moments when their real self slipped through. A careless comment soaked in cruelty. That cold glint in their eyes when someone else was hurting. The way they spoke about others behind their backs, like it was nothing. They were obsessed with image, always adjusting the script, so they looked like the victim, the hero, and the misunderstood. But the math never added up, and deep down, you noticed. They thought they were puppeteers pulling strings while you danced. What they didn't know is you weren't dancing, you were documenting, memorizing patterns, watching the inconsistencies stack up. But here's what really made them bold. They counted on your silence. They assumed your doubt would override your intuition, that you'd keep second-guessing yourself long enough for them to keep the show going. And for a while, maybe they were right. You told yourself you were imagining it, that you were being too sensitive, that maybe, just maybe, they didn't mean it like that. But that's the thing about chosen ones, we're slow to speak, but sharp when it counts. While they underestimated you, you were waking up. Piece by piece, the truth unfolded. You saw the web, and worse, you saw who spun it. And just like that, the spell broke. Their charm, dead. Their manipulation, transparent. Their stories, exposed. Now they're still trying to act, still clinging to the same tired role. But it doesn't matter anymore. You're not in their audience. You're not feeding their illusion. You walked off the stage and into your power. They thought they fooled you. But in reality, you just let them think they did until it was too late. Number 9. Silence isn't weakness, it's a strategy for the perfect exit. They'll never see coming. They saw your silence and smirked. They mistook it for fear, for weakness, for surrender. But the truth? That silence was strategy. Every moment you stayed quiet, every time you held back, every time you didn't react, they thought they were winning. But you were playing the long game, because only the chosen ones know when to speak and when to vanish without a sound. They thought they had you figured out, too broken to move, too dependent to leave, too wounded to ever reclaim your power. But while they were busy building a false sense of control, you were building your exit, not out of panic, not out of desperation, out of calculation. You weren't just surviving, you were studying, watching, clocking every pattern, every tactic, and every little slip in their act. You saw them for who they really were, and instead of exploding, you evolved. That's what scares them the most now. You didn't give them the drama they craved. You didn't fall apart so they could say, "See, this is why I treated them like that." No tears, no begging, no scene, just silence, and then distance. And that silence was louder than any confrontation ever could be. You didn't just walk away, you disappeared from their grip, from their narrative, from their illusion of control. They expected a version of you that would always stay small, always seek their validation, always feel less than. But that version, you buried it the moment you realized who you really are. A chosen one. Someone who doesn't need revenge to win. Someone who doesn't need closure to conquer. Someone who doesn't need to be seen falling apart to prove they were ever whole. Now they're the ones lost, spiraling, questioning, panicking because they can't find the buttons to push anymore. The strings they used to pull, cut. The control they thought they had, gone. Because while they were trying to trap you, you were building wings. And now, you're flying so far above their reach, they'll never touch you again. And the best part, you didn't just escape them, you outgrew them. Quietly, powerfully, permanently. Number 10. They don't deserve revenge. Let their own mind be the prison they can't escape from. Some punishments don't come with sirens or flashing lights. Some come silently in the dead of night, when the world goes quiet and there's no one left to perform for. That's when it hits them. Not the loss of power, not the ruined relationships, but the weight of being who they are. Every single day, they wake up and face the one thing they can't escape: themselves. That's the real sentence. And for people like this, it's a lifetime sentence. They walked through life like they were untouchable, playing chess with people's emotions, rewriting truth to suit their narrative, poisoning everything soft, loyal, and pure. They thought the world was a game and people were disposable. But what they didn't realize was that you can't build a future out of deception and expect it to feel like peace. They may have laughed, they may have looked like they were winning, but that version of success, it's hollow, a shell. Because now they live in a world where love is out of reach, trust is a myth, and respect vanishes the moment the mask slips. And here's the cruel irony, they know it. Deep down, in the cracks they never let anyone see, they feel it. The emptiness, the paranoia, the slow creeping realization that everything they touched has turned to dust. They crave admiration, but they know it's fake. They long for real connection, but no one truly sees them as safe. Because those who live in manipulation always end up trapped in the same web they spun for others. They can't run from it, because it lives inside them. You grew, you healed, you transformed, but they're stuck in a loop seeking validation they'll never find, haunted by the truth they don't have the courage to face. And no matter what they gain, nothing feels real. because nothing real can grow from a foundation built on lies. So while they tried to shatter you, they cursed themselves. You got out, you moved forward. But they're forced to live every day in the very mind that created the chaos. And that, chosen one, is the harshest punishment of all, to be the villain in their own story with no way to rewrite the ending. Number 11, they took you for granted. Now let them learn what it's like to need what they discarded. They treated your presence like background noise, always there, always giving, always ready to help. They thought your kindness came with no limits, that your loyalty was automatic, that your support was something they could take without ever saying thank you. They acted like you were disposable, replaceable, like you'd always be there, no matter how badly they treated you. But here's what they never saw coming. You were the one thing they'd eventually beg for when everything else crumbled. People who use others like stepping stones don't think about the long game. They live in illusions, thinking their power, charm, or control will always keep them on top. They believed you'd stay broken, that you'd stay small, that you'd keep needing them more than they ever needed you. But life doesn't play favorites. It flips the script when you least expect it. And now, it's flipped in your favor. While they kept playing games, you were growing. While they burned bridges, you were building yourself. Stronger, wiser, unbothered. They thought you were standing still when in reality you were rising in silence. And now that you've elevated past them, they're looking around and realizing there's no one left to clean up the mess they made. No one left to believe their lies. No one left to care. They fumbled something rare. You. The kind of person who gives without keeping score. The kind of soul who offers light, even in darkness. And now, when they finally hit rock bottom, they're reaching for the very hand they once slapped away. But you're gone. Not out of revenge. Not out of hate. But because you outgrew the small world they tried to keep you trapped in. And that's their real punishment, not the loss of control, not the failed games, but the fact that when they finally realized your value, you weren't there anymore. They'll call it bad luck, but we both know it's just consequences. Because when you treat people like tools, eventually you run out of things to use. And when you lose a chosen one, you don't get a second chance. They thought you were forgettable. Now, you're unforgettable. Number 12, end the cycle. Now, their damage doesn't deserve to echo into the next generation. People like this don't just ruin lives, they infect legacies. Their damage doesn't end when they walk away. It lingers, it multiplies. It seeps into the cracks of the next generation like smoke from a fire that never got put out. They think their betrayal was a one-time act, a private mess, something they could sweep under the rug and move on from. But pain doesn't vanish quietly, especially when it's passed down like a family heirloom no one asked for. They didn't just break hearts, they broke blueprints. The children left behind aren't just carrying their last name, they're carrying the weight of secrets, emotional starvation, and inherited trust issues that were never theirs to bear. Little eyes watched them normalize control, manipulation, cruelty, and called it love. And now those same children are left trying to untangle what love really means, without a healthy model to reference. That's what makes people like this so dangerous. They burn everything they touch and never look back to see what's left in ashes. But the truth is, the universe remembers what they refuse to face. The choices they made don't stay in the past, they plant roots in the present and grow into patterns that choke generations to come. What they did becomes family tradition. The lies they told become the unspoken rules. The abuse becomes a language everyone knows, but no one understands. And while they walk around thinking they got away with it, their name carries a different kind of weight, not legacy, but warning. a reminder of what happens when someone refuses to be accountable. They thought they were just hurting you. But what they really did was unleash a ripple effect that poisoned the soil for everyone attached to them. And unless someone like you, a chosen one, has the courage to break the pattern, that cycle keeps spinning. But here's the difference. You see it. You feel it. You refuse to let it continue. And that alone makes you the one who reclaims power from their destruction. They didn't just destroy relationships. They cursed their own bloodline. But you're the one turning their ashes into your breakthrough. And this is where the story flips. What they meant for your downfall became the very fire that refined you. They never thought you'd rise, never imagined you'd be the one to end the cycle, to break the chain, to rebuild from their destruction. But here you are, stronger, smarter, and untouchable. Let them carry their consequences. You carry legacy. If this spoke to your soul, it's because you're not alone. You're one of the chosen. So don't stop here. Like this video, hit subscribe, and stay close, because your next level is calling, and we're rising there together.